My husband toasted his lover at our anniversary, but my response made the room freeze. Nicole adjusted the color of her dark green wrap dress in the restaurant's polished mirror, her favorite pair of soft flats brushing against the plush carpet. 10 years felt like a lifetime, spent quietly supporting Tyler's fast climb through the ranks at Hargrove and Cole, one of Chicago's most prestigious accounting firms. She had learned to blend into the background, never too flashy, always steady, the reliable calm in his storm. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was their 10th anniversary. A small, elegant restaurant downtown where the city's skyline glittered through crystal-clear windows. As the servers brought the final course, Tyler rose, glass in hand. Nicole's chest tightened, a hopeful flutter stirring inside her. The room hushed, the group's laughter fading. Tyler's eyes scanned the table before landing, not on her, but on the woman sitting next to him, Ivy, his shimmering new colleague with a style that was all sharp lines and bold colors. "To the woman who's made my last year unforgettable," he declared smoothly, raising his glass to Ivy. The room erupted in polite applause, some laughter that felt edged with amusement, not warmth. Nicole's smile froze. The crystal embossing on the menu beneath her hand caught the candlelight, bright facets scattering soft rainbows. She pressed her fingers against the cold paper, drawing in a shaky breath, fighting the knot of disbelief and embarrassment. She caught the glint of the event photographer in the corner. Tyler had insisted on this tonight, despite her worries about privacy. The camera's lens pivoted steadily, snapping relentless shots. She wondered if this moment would be immortalized, not as a symbol of love, but as a public unraveling. Tyler's gaze stayed fixed on Ivy, a silent conversation passing between them. His toast felt rehearsed, distant. Nicole's vision blurred just slightly as whispers and glances darted around the table. Her friends wore expressions shadowed with sympathy, but no rescue. Ivy's smile held a hint of victory, but beneath it flickered a trace of something else, a sliver of doubt that made Nicole's heart thrum harder. The light chatter returned, but Nicole sat trapped in a bubble of hushed questions that refused to form words. She wondered how a decade of quiet support had been reduced to this sharp, unforgiving spotlight. The photograph clicked again, freezing the moment that everything began to tip. Switching her gaze, Nicole caught a glimpse of a folded paper beneath her napkin. An embossed card from the restaurant, inscribed with their names and the date. It seemed almost a promise, now twisted with irony. A subtle energy shifted in the room as Tyler lowered his glass and leaned toward Ivy, whispering words too soft to catch but heavy in meaning. Quietly, Nicole brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, anchored to the present by the fragile crystal menu beneath her palm, knowing this night was far from over, and that the tiniest detail might yet unlock a future no one expected. The room buzzed as clusters of guests shifted toward Ivy, who stood with a radiant smile that seemed carved from confidence and sharp ambition. Tyler leaned in, voice playful, as he recounted some late-night chaos at the office. "If not for Ivy, I might have been lost these past few months," he said, eyes shining with that mischievous spark Nicole had learned to recognize, a spark that rarely included her anymore. The laughter around the table hit the polished marble like distant thunder, but Nicole's smile felt brittle, her hands resting lightly on the linen napkin, fingers tightening as her breath caught for a moment. Her closest friends exchanged glances that spoke volumes, a language of sympathy and quiet questions. Nicole swallowed hard, a lump rising as she fought back a sudden sting in her eyes. Ivy caught Nicole's gaze once and lingered a heartbeat too long, her expression flickering between triumph and a subtle unease that softened her otherwise unshakable exterior. That subtle humanity, something beneath the polished veneer, stirred a fault line in Nicole's hurt. Jack, who had arrived late with a gift-wrapped box and an easy grin, noticed her faltering. Sliding his hand under the table, he squeezed hers, a brief pulse of solidarity. "Remember who stayed up editing those speeches," he whispered. eyes steady with a mix of encouragement and concern. Nicole's heart gave a faint, stubborn leap. There were roots here, into the shadows of corporate life where she'd labored unseen. Maybe she could find some foothold yet. Nearby, a staff member, shirt neatly pressed, name tag catching the light, leaned toward a colleague, voice low but urgent. "The newsletter's deadline is noon tomorrow. Looks like these photos will go firm-wide." The words landed like cold water. Nicole's chest tightened at the thought of tonight's embarrassment, magnifying beyond this intimate group, turning into company-wide gossip, a branded moment in the firm's official record. For a brief minute, Nicole allowed herself a small breath, eyes closing softly as the scent of pine from the centerpiece washed over her. The dimmed chandeliers flickered reflections on the polished glass, momentarily masking the tight knot in her throat. She wasn't alone. That much was painfully clear. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first crack in the wall. Somewhere in the hum of conversation, Tyler toasted Ivy once more, a private joke for their table's ears only. Nicole's gaze dropped to her glass, tracing the faintest ripple across the surface, as the reality settled in alongside a quiet ember of determination. The evening was far from over. The next move was hers. "If a moment like this ever hit close to home, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward." Nicole slipped away from the gathering, the laughter and clinking glasses behind her fading into a hollow echo. She spotted Tyler across the room, deep in conversation with a cluster of colleagues, that easy smile still worn like armor. Gathering her courage, she approached quietly, voice lowered. "Tyler, can we talk for a minute?" she asked, hope threading her words. He glanced her way, barely concealing impatience. "Nicole, not now. Just try to enjoy yourself," he replied. Voice clipped. "You're overthinking this." The words felt like a blow, dismissive, final. Her chest tightened, but she nodded, retreating before the sting grew sharper. Searching for some control, Nicole moved toward the event photographer, her hands trembling slightly as she spoke softly. "Is there any way to hold back some photos? I'd rather not have everything shared." The photographer's polite expression didn't change. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Hargrove approved the full set for promotional use." The finality in that sentence struck a new pang of powerlessness. Feeling the weight of the night crush her, Nicole thought of leaving early. As she slipped past the crowded dining area toward the cloakroom, a voice stopped her. Ivy, standing nearby, was on her phone, voice shaky as she whispered, "I can't believe he used my speech lines. They were meant for the fiscal report, not for this." Nicole froze, the words hanging between them like a fragile thread. The faint ring of truth sparked something she hadn't dared to hope for, a way forward tangled deep within the chaos. She pressed her fingers against the cool marble floor, steadying herself. Maybe, just maybe, this unexpected slip could open a path she could navigate. In that moment, the noise of the party dimmed to a distant murmur, replaced by the swelling rhythm of her own heartbeat and a flicker of courage that refused to die. "Sometimes," Nicole whispered under her breath, "even the smallest admission can change everything." The rooftop terrace was a cold, windswept island above the glittering sprawl of the city, far from the noise and forced smiles inside the restaurant. Nicole wrapped her arms tightly around herself, the fabric of her dark green dress flapping lightly against her legs. The air tasted sharp, a biting contrast to the warm laughter that still floated faintly through the glass doors below. Each clink of glasses echoed like shattered glass in her mind, a brutal reminder of the celebration that had turned into her undoing. She glanced down at the glass railing, the city lights swirling and fracturing in the uneven surface, a kaleidoscope of splintered reflections. The cold seeped into her bones, but it was nothing compared to the weight pressing on her chest. Her thoughts a tangle of heartbreak and disbelief, she tried to steady her breath. The crisp night air rushing through her like a distant song of resilience no one could hear. Among the shards of shame and confusion, A flicker of clarity emerged. She remembered the folder on their home computer. Q3 speeches, drafts, and photos. Tyler had asked her to keep it safe, joking it was his little, secret stash for office presentations. At the time, she had filed it away without a second thought. Now, Ivy's nervous words from earlier echoed sharply in her ears. He used my speech lines, meant for the fiscal report, not for this. The thought tugged at her, pulling her from the edge of despair. What if there was proof? Evidence that could untangle the messy web woven tonight. Her fingers brushed the cool glass as she focused, breathing in deep breaths that fogged the railing beneath her palm. The brutality of the night pressed close, but beneath it, a spark that could not be forgotten. For a moment, she let herself rest there. The city's hum a distant lullaby. The sting of rejection lived in the cold air, but so did the knowledge that in the depths of that folder might lie the chance for truth, for justice, quietly waiting for her to reach. If a moment like this ever hit close to home, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward. Early the next morning, the quiet hum of the city was just beginning to stir as Nicole sat at her kitchen table, the soft morning light filtering through the worn lace curtains. The hum of the coffee maker was a steady background rhythm, a small comfort amidst the swirling storm inside her mind. The glow of her laptop screen illuminated the determined set of her jaw as she navigated the folders they'd kept tucked away, files that once felt insignificant but now pulsed with new weight. Carefully, Nicole opened the folder labeled Q3 Speeches, Drafts, and Photos, the name a faint echo of Tyler's joke about his secret stash. As the documents loaded, she recognized the unmistakable flow of Ivy's original report draft, precise language and analytical insights that had been repurposed without credit. The timestamps confirmed what she suspected. These drafts predated Tyler's speech by days, maybe weeks. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, assembling a selection of these time-stamped drafts, side-by-side comparisons highlighting the borrowed passages. Each highlighted segment was a testament to something stolen, a truth veiled by years of polished presentations and carefully curated smiles. There was no room for denial in these stark files. Nicole forwarded the carefully curated evidence to Jack, her longtime friend and, more importantly now, one of the firm's newly appointed HR managers. She included a note referencing the company's code of ethics, specifically a clause about respecting intellectual property and proper attribution in corporate communications. Jack had once casually mentioned a recent internal memo underscoring this very policy. Knowing that, if the evidence was presented properly, it couldn't be easily dismissed, gave Nicole a cautious hope. She felt the risk weighing down on her too. If this confrontation failed, it might brand her as petty or vindictive. She could lose the fragile trust of her closest friends, maybe even sever the last ties she had in the professional circles she longed to remain part of. But the alternative, staying silent and watching her worth be erased, felt untenable. Her phone buzzed softly, a message from Jack. Received. Let's see what we can do. The simple words were fuel that steadied her. Nicole knew the path ahead would be uncomfortable, fraught with tension and uncertainty. But it was a chance to reclaim not only her dignity, but also the respect Ivy deserved. She took a deep breath, her eyes briefly landing on the green dress she'd worn the night before, draped over a chair like a silent witness. Whatever came next, this was the moment she chose to step out of the shadows. If a moment like this ever hit close to home, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward. Nicole entered the conference room with steady steps, her dark green dress pristine, a silent declaration of the composure she'd fought hard to reclaim. The midday light filtered through the tall windows of Hargrove & Cole's sleek downtown office, casting sharp geometric shadows across the polished table where Tyler and Ivy were already seated. The air was thick with anticipation, the hum of whispered conversations dimming to expectant silence as the firm's leadership gathered for their scheduled follow-up luncheon. Jack, discreetly stationed near the back, offered Nicole a small nod of support. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every pair of eyes settle on her, a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and something unspoken. Nicole began clearly, her voice calm, but carrying the quiet power of someone who'd finally found her footing. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her fingers lightly brushing the laptop before her. "I wanted to acknowledge the beautiful photos from last night. They captured moments we'll remember." Her eyes met Ivy's briefly, an unspoken moment of solidarity. With a click, the screen behind her lit up. Side-by-side excerpts appeared, official drafts labeled with dates and times. Ivy's original report lines contrasted with Tyler's speeches from recent presentations. The room's murmurs softened into a taut silence. Nicole's voice lowered just enough to command attention. Sometimes, the truest partnerships happen behind the scenes, not as accolades on a stage, but in moments of shared effort and creativity. Her words carried no accusation. Instead, they framed the truth gently, acknowledging Ivy's work while revealing Tyler's appropriation. She paused, letting the message sink in. Faces shifted, some impassive, others betraying hints of discomfort. Tyler's posture stiffened. Ivy's cheeks flushed, a mixture of embarrassment and relief flickering in her gaze. This wasn't a spectacle of blame, but a public acknowledgement of an injustice that needed reckoning. The HR director stepped forward, nodding toward Nicole's presentation. "The firm takes intellectual property seriously," she affirmed. "We will be conducting a review of recent speechwriting credits. This matter is in line with our code of ethics." Jack caught Nicole's eye, a quiet smile offering reassurance. Ivy's glance lingered a moment longer, no longer with bravado, but with gratitude. The shift in the room was subtle, but irrevocable. The power balance had begun to tilt. Nicole gathered her notes, finishing with a soft but resolute, "Thank you for listening." As she stepped down, the hum of renewed conversations rose, not whispers of gossip, but discussions tinged with respect and new possibilities. When dignity finally speaks, who tends to listen in your world? The conference room buzzed softly as the HR director stepped to the front, the atmosphere taut with anticipation. Nicole stood just behind him, her heart steady but alert, dressed in the same dark green wrap dress that had come to embody this unexpected journey. She watched as Jack, standing close by, offered a reassuring nod. His presence was a quiet strength, reminding her she wasn't alone. "As part of our commitment to transparency," the HR director announced, "we have reviewed all recent speech writing credits and promotional materials. We acknowledge discrepancies involving the use of original content without proper attribution." His voice was measured, firm. Tyler shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his usual composure faltering for a moment. When the director's gaze landed on him, the silence deepened. "Mr. Hargrove has admitted to incorporating colleagues' materials into his speeches without permission," the director continued. "This violates both the firm's ethical code and our standards of professional integrity." Nicole caught Ivy's eye across the table. The younger woman's expression was a complex blend of embarrassment and relief, her shoulders noticeably less burdened. Ivy had finally received the public credit she deserved. There was no triumph in Ivy's smile, only genuine gratitude. Tyler's voice was low but steady when he spoke next. "I take full responsibility and apologize to Ivy, the firm, and everyone affected." The room responded with a respectful silence, the weight of the moment settling evenly. Applause erupted from several members of the staff, warm and sincere, directed toward Nicole. She felt a flush of vindication, not from triumph over another, but from being seen at last for who she really was, steady, just, and undeniably worthy. Later, as the gathering broke into smaller groups, Ivy approached Nicole with a handwritten note. "Thank you for making sure my work mattered," Ivy said quietly, eyes bright. It was a gesture that wrapped up months of unseen effort and unspoken support. Nicole folded the note carefully into her purse and stepped outside, the afternoon sun bathing the building in soft light. For the first time in a long while, she breathed deeply, the heaviness lifting slightly. The conversation was far from over, but the road ahead was clearer. With respect restored and fairness visibly reclaimed, Nicole held her head high, not as someone who had been broken, but as a woman who had fought with dignity and won her rightful place. If a moment like this ever hit close to home, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward. In the weeks that followed the firm's public reckoning, Nicole found herself walking a new path, one shaped not by the shadows she'd known, but by a quiet strength that bloomed in unexpected ways. Invitations arrived for meetings she'd never imagined attending, including one to join the firm's community outreach board. The honor surprised her, not because she doubted her worth, but because it signaled a recognition that had long been denied. She and Ivy started meeting regularly at a small cafe near the office, a place filled with soft jazz and the aroma of freshly ground coffee. Their conversations shifted from the sting of betrayal toward plans for advocacy, how to foster integrity and kindness within the firm and beyond. Ivy's laughter, once guarded, now came effortlessly. In those moments, Nicole felt something rare and precious: solidarity. One chilly Saturday morning, Nicole stood before a modest donation box at a local charity drive. Her favorite dark green wrap dress hung in her hands, a familiar weight. The fabric caught the soft autumn light as she folded it carefully, a gesture both symbolic and hopeful. She watched the dress disappear among other gifts, imagining its new wearers stepping confidently into their own stories. Her reflection flickered in the glass storefront, a woman both transformed and at peace. The scars of humiliation still marked her, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they fueled a quiet wisdom, that respect begins within, nurtured by courage and patience. As she walked away, the city breathed around her, the hum of life, the pulse of possibility. Nicole knew the road ahead held challenges, but also promise. And with steady hands and an open heart, she was ready to meet them all. If a moment like this ever hit close to home, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button. See you in our next story.